Good morning and welcome to Sunday Soul Food. This week, I want to talk about what source is and what source is not. Interestingly, the deeper I've gone into really exploring what the energetic realm is, the more I've come to realize that what most of us believe and these angelic beings, ascended masters, gods, deities, all of these things that we identify as energetic realm, that's really rooted in ego because all of that is the humanization of the energetic realm. And I hear all the time things like the universe is sending this to me to teach me a lesson, or God is going to send this person in your life to punish you until you learn your lesson. I read that the other day on Instagram. And really, what the stream teaches us, and I will tell you what the stream is in just a moment, in case you haven't heard me really talk about this before, but the stream teaches us that all of that is our mind's own creation, that the energetic realm is source, and source is the universe. And the universe is for the very best terminology I can come up with for it is a creative entity. It is creation. And that consciousness is the driver of all creation. Thought. We dream things up and they become reality. And the entire universe is exactly that. And as human beings, we are expressions of that. The reason that humanity or human beings, the reason that we are different than everything else in our environment is because we are able, as beings of consciousness, to project our thought into the future and imagine something that is different, perhaps quite different than what we are experiencing right now. Where every other form of life, every other being in our environment is responding to the now moment. And that response to the now moment can cause a species to completely disappear. Ultimately, it's no longer functioning and the response is not in alignment with the environment anymore, and it becomes extinct, whether it's a plant or an animal or whatever. But as human beings, we are able to project beyond just the reaction to our now and dream up something that does not yet exist. And as expressions of source, that places us as beings more in the core of that source energy. Because that source energy is all about new creation, because new creation is expansion. And the universe is all about expansion. That constant expansion, that constant expansion of energy, if you will, that doesn't expand into new space. It simply expands in sophistication or density. And that expansive journey is infinite. And as human beings, it's very difficult for us to even begin to comprehend infinite. How can there possibly be no beginning and no end to something? How can there possibly be no end of time? But from everything even science has explained at this point, that's the way the energetic realm is. That linear time is a physical observation. And it really is, if you think about it, it's an experience. So in our physical state of being, we're in an experience. We're not eternal. There's a beginning, middle, and an end to this physical environment. But as consciousness, we're eternal. The consciousness that created us, the consciousness that is experiencing this life journey as what we perceive as a human being in the earth environment, that consciousness moves on and is eternal and has other experiences. But the ego-driven physical being does not. The way we know ourselves, that ego version of us, is here having this temporary human experience. And there's no right or wrong way to have it. And I think the most profound thing that we can discover as human beings, and the stream teaches us that this is available to us right now, is being able to understand that eternal source perspective while we're in our physical state. Understanding that it is not judgmental, understanding that it is not fearing or judging anything that happens in the earth environment, understanding that it is not it is not experiencing trauma beyond the trauma that we choose to experience. That our programmed judgment of what we're experiencing creates all of our suffering, all of our trauma. And we think back to the most painful parts of our lives and think, gosh, I don't know how I could have experienced that any differently. Well, first of all, I don't think we needed to experience it any differently. The experience was exactly what we had. And the traumatic experiences of our lives, even just the challenging experiences of our lives, that is the driver that creates a more sophisticated experience for us. It expands us. It expands our being. It expands our consciousness. And the way I like to think of this stuff is when you're in your eternal state of being and you're reflecting back on the weekend trip that is your human journey, you are looking at it very differently. The pain and suffering and trauma and loss and all of those things aren't felt the way that we feel them in our physical vehicle. They're just not experienced that way because we're eternal. So we're having these infinite physical experiences, and in some of these physical experiences, we are more successful in navigating that journey than others from an ego perspective. And some, maybe we don't even make it to the birth experience. And some, maybe we meet our demise very early on. We know in not too many generations ago, a lot of children didn't make it past 3, 4, 5, 6 years of age. Some sort of illness would come along and they would be gone. And perhaps we've had thousands of experiences like that. So if you've had thousands of experiences where you died at 3, 4, 5, or didn't make it out of the womb, or at 15 or at 30, and you've had experiences where you were murdered, and you've had experiences where you were sick the whole time, you've had experiences where you lived in great poverty, you've had experiences where you were enslaved. We know there's a lot of slavery in the history of the world, recorded history. You've had experiences where you triumphed. You've had experiences where you were abusive to other people, where you were the master of the slaves. Just start imagining how many, if we are an infinite being, an infinite strand of consciousness, how many experiences we've had from a human perspective. It's mind-boggling. We can't even comprehend it. But from the eternal perspective, that really takes the pressure off the current life experience that we're in, as far as needing all of this perfection that the matrix tells us that we're supposed to be experiencing. And something that I'm really working on, and I have been working on for the past few years, is really when I came out as a channel, the matrix sort of guided me that spirituality is your thing. Your genre is spirituality. People that are going to be into this channeling stuff are people that are into spiritual stuff. This is spiritual. And I would use that term all the time. I'm a spiritual author. I have a spiritual podcast. But the more I explore the energetic realm, the more I realize that it's not that spiritual. In fact, it's not spiritual at all. Spirituality, as mainstream spirituality, is just another construct of the matrix. And there's nothing wrong with it any more than there's anything wrong with anything else going on in our world. So it's not about it being wrong. But when we're thinking in terms of there's an external thing, a deity, a being outside of ourselves that is guiding us to an experience, or teaching us a lesson, or punishing us for something, or there's karma, which is just another deity, if you think about it. It's another form of energy that is, coming back around and teaching us things and stuff like this. All of that really is just our consciousness creating a reality that we experience, and coming into a physical reality that is polarized. In that polarized journey experiencing what we consider positive and negative, and allowing the negative aspects of our world to inspire new creation, which is expansion. And that's the reason negative exists, the only reason negative exists. Because when we're not in a physical environment, then we are operating as source, as God, as abundance, as love, whatever you want to call it. Because beyond physical, that's what there is. That's what source is. Source is all of those things, but it's not guiding us to anything specific. It's simply abundant. It's well-being. It is love. It is what we identify as love. All of that is all around us, and there's far more of that than there is negative. But the negative stuff is very challenging, and we're operating our lives right now in this matrix that teaches us fear, that teaches us judgment, that teaches us that should not be. Think about it. That's what the matrix does for us. It slaps that label on things as this should not be. You need to fear this. And if you start fearing it, you're going to build momentum toward fear. You're going to create more things to be fearful of in your life, and you're going to be a fearful being. But when we start detuning fear and judgment, it's an interesting experience because life starts to really transform. The world transforms. Your day-to-day reality significantly transforms. And I know there's some of you watching live right now that have been through that because you went through boot camp. Good morning, Donna. Good to see you on here. And I know there's more of you watching. Be sure to say hello and let me know who you are. So what I'm driving at this morning is really that idea that all of that spiritual stuff is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I do believe that people are served at different levels with all of these things. People are served by organized religion. People are served by atheism. People are served by politics. People are served by consumerism. People are served by, we talk a lot lately about the concept of anti-aging and fitness and all of this stuff that sort of becomes a religion for people. Everyone defaults into something. Everyone defaults into some sort of a belief system. And when you start deconstructing the external elements that influence your belief system, you find yourself out in this wilderness. You find yourself sort of spit out of the matrix, and now you're out there and you kind of feel like, well, hell, now what? And the interesting thing is that when you get out there and you get in that blissed out space, you're not impacted by the matrix anymore, but it gets boring. It gets really boring being out in the wilderness, not really mixing it up in 3D and having your human journey that you're here to have. And so you got to figure out, how do I re-enter the matrix without being controlled by it? Because if you don't, I believe in the teachings that we've done lately with the top of the spiral and the bottom of the spiral, that either position held long enough will probably result in your separation from physical. That being so blissed out that you don't want or need anything sort of ends your life journey because there's no purpose in it anymore. Just like being at the bottom of your spiral where you're hating yourself, you're hating life, and you just want to exit. That can create the exit from physical reality as well. So you're going to be apt to exit at either space. So when you do this work and you get your vibration so high, how do you come back down and stay positive? How do you come back from positive 20 and operate more in positive 5, positive 10? Well, it's about finding passions and finding things that you want to experience and believing that they can be yours and still savoring the human journey, but all the while detuning the judgment and the fear that are delivered to us in the matrix. And the interesting thing about the matrix is there's always something that's going to creep back around and present itself to you that gives you the option of climbing back into the matrix if you want. But the interesting thing is that you can choose to be an observer of the matrix, but not necessarily be controlled by it. And that's where the Taya practice is really taking us, is to the space of certainly higher vibration, of understanding our vibrational nature, understanding that being DTS creates a set of circumstances that really allows us to be a whole different person than when we're up the spiral. And there's value in that. That down the spiral stuff brings clarity. That down the spiral stuff can be very cleansing. That down the spiral stuff can be certainly a period of manifesting some new obstacles that you can choose to meet in joy. And when you choose to start meeting obstacles in joy, things really transform, because you come to realize that, well, wait a minute, I don't have to meet this in fear. I don't have to be triggered down my spiral. I don't have to be terrified of what might happen. Instead, this thing has popped up, and I know that all I need to do is go back up in vibration and solve it. In fact, most of the time, if I allow my vibration to go up, it's going to seem like it's solving itself. But really, what I'm doing is I'm allowing my source being to come into focus, and my source being, which we are all beings of source, to allow the natural solving of something. And that's really magical. So I was watching a political show yesterday. I watch Bill Maher every week. I talk about that a lot on these shows. And it's kind of where I kind of keep my tabs on what's going on politically. Well, there was a lot of fear being peddled about what's going on in the United States politically right now, that democracy is dying, that it's over, that pretty soon we're moving into an authoritarian regime, and compared what's going on in the United States to Hitler taking over and things like that, that's going to become the reality. And the interesting thing is that I observed that, but I didn't fall into the fear around that. It was more of a, wouldn't it be interesting to experience something like that outside the matrix? Now, if you're in the matrix, it's probably terrifying to experience something like that. But outside the matrix, being contained in a space where somebody is wanting to assert more authority and tell you how to live your life and what you can and can't do, which according to that show, this is the path that we're on, is that going to, are we not going to be able to channel anymore? Are we not going to be able to? It would be so easy to slip into the fear of all of that. But if the vibration is well-being, then the belief that one will be okay no matter what happens, because in all of these stories of all of these, war and authoritarian regimes taking over and all this ethnic cleansing and all this stuff that goes on, there's always stories of people that aren't party to that. They escape it somehow. They move beyond it somehow, or they're just not having that same experience. Well, to me, it's almost like I'm manifesting for myself the ultimate test of how much do I really believe that I create my reality. Because I know we have gone into recessions, and I have chosen not to participate in the recession. And I've just said that I'm not going to participate in this. I know that we've had people elected, especially in the last 20 years or so, last 10 years or so, that people around me thought were going to, just be this horrible leader that was just going to destroy the country. And I chose not to believe that. And I didn't see that reality ever come to fruition. So much fear mongering and so little actual change that speaks to the fear. So as you navigate your world and you start to move yourself out of the matrix into belief, into trust, and believing that you're abundant, believing that the universe is caring for you, it's not a group of deities, but it is that loving energy of abundance and well-being that is just that. And I understand that some people need to identify that as, angels and masters and guides and gods and all of that stuff. But it really is all just that. That's what source is. That's what the stream is. And when I channel, I'm very, very clear that that's what I'm tapping into. I'm tapping into that consciousness of creation of all that is and speaking it, but not being possessed by something else, but just tapping into that knowing and allowing myself to shift into a gear that allows me to speak it without my ego being in the way of it at all. That's the best way I can describe what goes on when I channel the stream. And usually I'm channeling on Sunday mornings, but I channeled a very powerful message last Thursday. If you haven't seen it, please go back and watch the whole hour of Claim Your Power Hour. Stacy was on with me, and we, chit chatted a little bit, but then I got into channeling, and it was just amazing. So if you haven't seen that, go back and watch after we're through here this morning, or whenever you want to. Go back and watch last Thursday's Claim Your Power Hour from just 2 days ago. That was a very, very powerful message from the stream. And delivering that powerful message really sent me on this journey of wanting to come and talk to all of you this Sunday morning about really, we can go into a quiet meditative space, and that's great. But when I'm on here with you, I really love to just talk about this stuff, about these new levels of clarity that I'm receiving that bring me to realize that we are on our own self-created journey here in this world, and that our belief system is our operating system. Our belief system is creating our perceived reality, and that perceived reality exists for the sole purpose of expanding us. And that expansion of self, or our consciousness, is contributing to the expansion of source and all that is. So the energetic realm is always morphing into a more sophisticated version of itself, becoming denser, wiser, if you will, more experiences, more new creation, more of what's next. And the only thing that drives creation of what's next, or the need for anything more, because we don't need anything in the energetic realm because it's nothing but abundance, right? But you express in a physical environment that is polarized. And in physical environments, we have certainly endless things that we want to experience. If you allow yourself to believe that you can experience anything and everything in your environment, then there's infinite things that you can want. So in this want, and the wanting of things is always about pleasure and joy and just positive experiences that we want to have, whatever that is. And to get to the things that we want in these polarized environments, we must also experience the contrast of things that we don't want. But the things that we don't want pop up as our own creation to allow us to create something new in the moving through the experience. And the very first creation is the moving out of the triggered fear reaction of it. The very first creation is making sense of, oh gosh, I just got diagnosed with cancer, or I just found out my job's going away, or I just found out that, or it's looking like my business is going to fail and I'm going to have to start all over again. Whatever it is, these big things that happen in our lives. Your relationship is falling apart. And all of a sudden the energy shifts, and then all of a sudden this momentum, this negative momentum starts, and things really start to unravel. And the initial triggered reaction of fear and judgment is sort of a knee-jerk thing for us, because the matrix has taught us to think just that. Well, what does that do? That fuels it. That creates more of it. That keeps us in more of a state of creating more unwanted things. But we don't have to respond that way. We don't have to respond that way to anything. The learned response of being triggered down our spiral with something that's labeled traumatic, that is an ego-driven response that is learned. We learn to be fearful. We learn to respond negatively to things that we fear. We don't have to. So making your life's journey, learning how to respond in appreciation of everything that you manifest, including your unwanted stuff, that is so powerful. Because now you go down your spiral a little bit, you manifest an obstacle somewhere, you meet that obstacle in joy because you understand from a consciousness perspective, and you can remember things even when you're down your spiral. And you can remember that you're a vibrational being, that you're in a DTS mode, and that you created this mess, whatever it is. I created this. Those of us that get deep into law of attraction teachings, we start to do that. We start to accept, well, this is my creation. I manifested this. How in the hell did I manifest this? And it's that first step in claiming ownership, which is very powerful and very transformative. Think about the time that something bad used to happen and you immediately felt like a victim and felt powerless and didn't claim any ownership of it. And this is something that's being done to me or thrust upon me by the universe or something like that, and claiming no ownership whatsoever and feeling very powerless around it. And then you start learning about consciousness creation, the universal process of creation, and you start claiming ownership. And at least you're a step way ahead when you start thinking, gosh, how did I create this? I created this problem. How did I do that? Well, then getting beyond that, even, and just saying, gosh, look what I created for myself. I can actually choose to meet this in joy of this problem is something that I've created that I know that I'm going to expand in the solving of it. You can do that. That's what the Taya practice really is. You can do that. And you can learn to do it all the time. And then when you're doing that, the transformative aspect of that is that you're not suffering in all that judgment and fear. So a challenge comes along and you're just not triggered by it anymore. And then pretty soon you realize, gosh, the quicker I meet this in joy and go back up my spiral, the faster I'm going to solve this, allow the solving of it. And it's not something I'm going to have to really toil at figuring out. It's something that it's just going to be figured out on my behalf, because my source being is going to be present energetically, and the solving of things, the healing of things, the abundance of things are guaranteed in that source being perspective. So when we're above zero, when we're up in +5, +10, +15, the well-being and abundance is flowing in, guaranteed. Guaranteed. I've proven that to myself. Absolutely, I've proven it to myself. And when we let our ego get out of the way of the how and simply understand that, yeah, what's out there is abundance. What's out there is well-being. What's out there is joy and love and all of those positive things that we want to experience. That's what makes the energetic realm. But I did choose to not just stay focused in the energetic realm, because it's boring, because it's sitting in the lounge chair at the 5-star resort having every need met, which is fun for a little while and becomes very boring very quickly, because there's no interest, there's no challenge, there's no struggle, there's nothing to solve, there's nothing that expands you. And it's when you start thinking about it in terms of these examples, it makes so much sense. At least it does to me. I hope it does to you. If it doesn't, tell me, and I will try harder to explain it for you. But it just clicks together so well when the stream is flowing. When I'm in that above neutral, stream allowing place, it just makes so much sense that we exist in this perfection state, but there's no expansion offered there, and it becomes static. And the way that we stay out of that static space is the guarantee of endlessly projecting into physical, and in this physical projection, becoming more sophisticated versions of ourselves. But because the physical environment has that interesting aspect of there are things in physical that we really want to experience, and there are things in physical that we really don't want to experience. There's that discernment piece that comes in when we're in physical, because our ego is a discerner of preference. In the energetic realm, there's nothing to prefer. It's all abundant. You're all seeing. You're all knowing. It's all love. It's all good. You need for nothing. You want for nothing. You are afraid of nothing. You are judging nothing. It is source. And source is not judging or fearing on our behalf. That's our ego doing that. But the ego serves the great purpose of overshadowing source in our physical state, so that we can have this feeling, emotional experience of preference. Yes, I want to experience that. I want to travel the world. I want to, go to beautiful places and meet interesting people and eat great food and see beautiful scenery and wake up in different spaces that just feel different and feel good. And I feel renewed. I want to, drive those beautiful cars. I want to live in a beautiful home. And I just want to have all of these amazing experiences, talking to people, that are smart and like-minded. Those are all the things that I want to experience. I want to experience my dog's happiness and just watch that unconditional love that you receive from a pet. I want to experience those things. That's just what life is, and that's what I want. But then these things that I don't prefer are always popping up. And they're popping up because of polarity. Because polarity drags my vibe down a little bit, then something's going to unravel, something's going to not work, something's going to roll in that is unwanted, and it becomes an experience. So I'm experiencing XYZ, and I'm moving through this unwanted experience, and how am I choosing to do that? From the source perspective, you're doing it in joy, because the only reason it exists in the first place is to make you uncomfortable enough to want something else to manifest, a healing from it, a solution, a correction. And there's evidence all around us that that is the way of the world, that everything gets solved, everything comes back, everything bounces back. Even if the physical aspect of it ceases to be, we know the consciousness moves on, and the physical vehicle is returned to the earth environment and actually feeds the earth environment. One way or another, we become, it's still our physical vehicle, it becomes an aspect of the earth environment. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We become a contributor to the earth environment. So there really is no ending to that which we are. There's a separation from physical that occurs so that our consciousness moves on to other experiences, because the physical experience is always temporary, and there's a reason behind that, because physical is supposed to have that beginning, middle, and an end aspect to it. And in that journey, there are these preferences. There are things experienced that are appreciated and joyful, and there are things that are experienced that are not that. The opposite, that are painful, traumatic, whatever you want to call them. But if really you boil it all down to, all it is an absence of source, being more in ego and less in source, all the way down to the bottom of your spiral, which is mostly ego and very little source. And it just creates an experience. That absence of source, that absence of abundance, that creates clarity. Gosh, what's in my vibrational basement? What can I work on next? Where are my limiting beliefs? Where am I still feeling not worthy? And there's always something to work on. And that's really the good news, because that's the work we come here to do. This idea, and I know mainstream spirituality loves to push this idea that we're going to give birth to this new earth that is utopian, that is all love, that we want for nothing. But the issue there is there's no reason to have a physical environment like that. That's how we exist in non-physical. So the only new earth that is perfection is going to be the energetic realm that is non-physical. And we're in it. We're already there. And we return to that consciousness when we're not physical. So anytime we have a physical environment, the new earth, or 5D, or however you want to categorize that or describe it, that is all an ego-driven experience, an ego-driven description of what's next. The only massive shift that's available to us, according to the stream and everything that I've explored in all of this, is making that massive journey to exiting the human created matrix while still being in physical. Which means you're still in polarity, you still go up and down your spiral, you still manifest obstacles, but your perception of all that is very different. You're no longer fearing, you're no longer judging, you're no longer labeling anything as should not be. You get a diagnosis of illness, maybe even terminal illness. That's the experience you're having. Here I am in physical, having this physical experience that is unwanted, However long this takes is my manifestation. And it's my journey to have this experience and allow the solving of it or not. You lose a loved one. Someone passes away perhaps unexpectedly, and you really miss them. Well, it's the experience that you're having. So as a tyist, there's no rule that you're not allowed to mourn or grieve. You can have that experience. You absolutely, the stream has talked about this. The stream has said that you absolutely can have an experience where someone that you love deeply, even someone very, very close to you, crosses over, and you can choose to celebrate the experience they had and celebrate their returning to their completed state without feeling any sadness whatsoever, but nothing but joy for what was manifested. And I know, hearing those words, and you think back to the loved ones that you've lost, and it seems impossible to have that experience. Well, there's no mandate that you have to have that experience. That's the most important thing to remember, because if you get into that kind of a vibe, it's going to backfire on you, because the next time something like that happens, you're going to think, oh gosh, I'm not allowed to grieve. I'm not allowed to be sad. I'm not allowed to. But what if you just have the experience of, okay, this pet or this child or this parent or this sibling or this partner came and had an experience that had a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I enjoyed the physically manifested version, and maybe not human, maybe a pet, the physically manifested version of them very much. I enjoyed their personality. I enjoyed their sense of humor. I enjoyed something about that. And if I start thinking about it from an eternal perspective, is it okay for me to allow myself to just be in joy of the experience they had? I know that that is easier when someone crosses over from old age and their physical vehicle is moved beyond its usefulness and they are suffering. I've experienced that. I have witnessed someone draw their last breath and cross over and exit a physical vehicle that was very clearly used up or worn out or whatever you want to call it. And it was a very joyful experience. But could you apply that to something else? I'm not saying that you need to or that there's a mandate to do it, but it's an interesting exercise. And maybe in this interaction, we can think about how we might experience something like that very differently. And then, that's a big example, right? And then take that down to something else. Take it down to the loss of a job or a business that's failing, or an overdrawn bank account, or a bankruptcy, or a lost home, or a totaled vehicle, or something of that nature. And just think, gosh, what if I just choose to appreciate the experience for exactly what it was and not create suffering for myself in it? Because I realize now, and I think we all do in these teachings, that all the suffering is our own creation. We create the suffering when we label something should not be. So therefore, if that's our creation because we're labeling it should not be, we can actually catch ourselves, even DTS. And I understand how very different we are when we're down the spiral than we are when we're up. But try it. Try catching yourself DTS the next time you're really down there, catching yourself and realizing I am suffering right now, A, because I'm DTS, B, because I'm labeling this as should not be. But what if I don't do that? What if I choose not to label this as should not be? What if I choose to label this the experience that I'm having? And what if I realize that I'm creating this experience for myself because all of these experiences expand me, even the painful ones, especially the painful ones. So I'm choosing something different. I'm in control of my reaction. And instead of judging something as should not be, instead of putting that label on it and suffering in it, I am going to choose to appreciate it. And maybe I can't even really express that verbally. You can, but maybe I'm not ready to express it verbally yet. But I am internally going to choose to appreciate this. And I'm going to start making this my way of life. Finding appreciation for the obstacles and pulling myself out of that DTS space sooner and sooner and sooner until I'm rarely there. And when I am there, it's very uncomfortable. I'm speaking from personal experience here. I can tell you when I go DTS, it's very uncomfortable because I don't spend much time down there. So when I am there, it's very uncomfortable. And that allows me to pull myself out of it really fast. Like, I don't want to stay down here. I don't like this feeling. I don't like this vibe. So I am going to start using my tools and doing my work and lift myself out of it instantly. And you can lift out of that stuff instantly, but you've got to put away that judgment. You've got to put away that this should not be, because it's what is. So there's nothing that is that should not be, because it is. That should not. That is the matrix teaching us to judge something as should not be. And it creates all of our suffering. So I hope these words have been helpful, and I hope that you can take this information into your week and start catching yourself when you're judging something or labeling it should not be, and transmute that energy into appreciation in the moment and see how different your week goes. It will be very different. It will be very, very different. So I do want to encourage you. I'm going to sign off a little early here. I do want to encourage you, if you have not already, and maybe watch it a couple of times. I've heard a couple of people say they've watched it a couple of times already. Go back to last Thursday's Claim Your Power, watch it again, or watch it for the first time if you haven't already, and leave a comment. Drop a comment about what you liked about it. Let's be a little more social in our interaction here on Patreon, if you would. We like hearing from you. We like to hear what you like. We like to hear what you don't like. We want to know what you want this community to be, because we want to deliver that to you. We very much do, the team and I. And the stream is not going anywhere. I backed off from channeling for a little while just because I thought I was just doing it too much. But I love channeling, and I love what they deliver, but I want it to be an authentic offering of what Source is always. And if that's not what we need to experience in the moment, if we need to experience bouncing around ideas and talking about how to apply these things, that's what the experience is going to be. So sometimes there's a lack of consistency in the channeling, but that's my intention. My intention is to always share the stream authentically with you, getting out of the way, stripping away all of the human constructs of religion and spirituality, and really channeling the universe and universal law. And then getting together with you intellectually and really talking about, what is this experience? What are you manifesting in this experience? What are you manifesting for yourself in this journey of knowledge that we're all in together, learning from the stream and applying it in our lives, and figuring out how to better apply it in our lives, and how to expand, and how to do it more, how to get ahead of the DTS and move through those low vibration experiences, understanding exactly what's going on, appreciating them, and then allowing ourselves to move right back up our spiral. That is possible, and that's what Taya is all about. The practice of Taya is about experiencing the vibrational journey, the human vibrational journey, in more appreciation, with an ever increasing abundance flowing to us, because that is the nature of the universe. Expansion is the nature of the universe. Just like the financial markets go up and down, but they ultimately always go up. Well, our lives can be that too. If our vibration is not continually going up through the ups and downs, it's because we are choosing to have that duller, lower vibrational experience of compliancy. That's the matrix. That's what we're detuning here. That's what we're moving away from. And yes, there are things, just think about how many things have popped up recently as humanity is seeking to crack open the matrix and really flow out of it. We've had the pandemic. We've had a war with Russia and Ukraine. We've had, all this political unrest. And now we have this, new doomsday election thing coming up in the United States, and I know that's happening in other places too. So, as a community, let's keep ourselves up at a higher altitude above all of that stuff. We can recognize it. We can know what's going on down there. We can acknowledge it. We can appreciate all the beings that are playing in the matrix, but we don't have to be of the matrix ever, 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 ever. We don't have to be of the matrix. We can permanently remove ourselves out of there, move through vibrational flow without getting drawn back into fear and judgment, and understanding that there is no wrong way to operate this life. There's nothing to be afraid of. We're eternal beings here having a temporary experience. And that temporary experience can be one of higher and higher and higher joy, clarity, and abundance all the time. Thanks for watching live. Have a fantastic week. And remember to go back and watch last Thursday's Claim Your Power if you haven't already. Thank you.